I'm Steve Wilkerson. I'm with Jim Saunders, Executive Editor of the News Service of Florida. Well, Jim, this week, politicians and pundits in Tallahassee are going to quit looking backward toward the election and look ahead as we have a reorganizational session. And we'll see who the new committee chairmen are and so forth, and we'll see how the two new presiding officers do and kind of what some of their priority issues will be. What will you be covering?
Well, the two new presiding officers are probably the biggest news. Andy Gardner is going to be the new Senate president. He's out of Orlando. And Steve Crisafulli is going to be the new House Speaker as of Tuesday morning. And they've been lined up in these positions for a while, but it'll be interesting to see what their priorities are going to be going forward. Both of them have talked a lot about water, of all issues. Water's been discussed around here for years and years, but it doesn't seem like it's hard. It's a very hard policy area, and it also has massive scope. You can talk about drinking water, you can talk about environmental quality, and anyway, it's interesting that they have sort of seized on that issue as being one of their priorities to address.
Do you think that the passage of Amendment Number 1, Constitutional Amendment Number 1, designating some money for that problem for the next 20 years has something to do with why they're focusing on this?
Well, they were talking about it beforehand, and one of the issues is springs. And I think Gardner, being from the Orlando area, he also represents part of Brevard County. There's a lot of springs down there. It's a big issue in some of those areas, the quality of springs and whether there's degradation of them going on. So this was an issue that they had raised even before the amendment passed. I do think it's going to be very interesting to see how that amendment plays into this, because all of a sudden there's going to be a pot of money set aside for environmental conservation as well as water projects that's going to be designated for that. And it'll be interesting to see how they use that money, particularly for water projects. It can go for things like the Everglades, but it also could go for a lot smaller scale sorts of projects.
Well, I think they're estimating $600 million for this first year. Could that lead to some interesting range wars over water?
Well, I think when there's that much money at play, people are going to be trying to pick off pieces of it. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Again, it'll be interesting to see their big picture view of how to address the water issues. I mean, it goes all the way down to septic tanks. I mean, there's been fights about septic tanks in the past, of all things. And, there's a lot of interest involved in water issues because obviously you have the environmentalists on one side, but you have developers, you have the agriculture industry, you have local governments who are very interested in this issue. So it's going to be interesting to see what their vision for carrying out the idea of addressing water will be.
Okay, let's move to another issue that's picking up some steam on the television airwaves and being heard in comments by legislators, and it's also the subject of several lawsuits in our courts, and that basically can be summarized by the term school choice and also another term tax credit scholarships. They're all related. Let's break that down for our viewers. First, school choice. We're seeing TV spots advocating school choice for minorities.
It has been really interesting the last 6 or 8 months how this issue has developed. The legislature in the spring approved a bill that expanded what's known as the Florida Tax Credit Scholarship Program. That is a program in which companies can give money to organizations that then provide, call them vouchers, call them scholarships, whatever you want to call them, for low-income children to go to private schools. The legislature expanded that program during the spring. There have been 2 lawsuits filed since then, one of which challenges the constitutionality of the program, period, and another one is more specific, challenging the law that passed. But that's created a very large backlash by the school choice supporters. They have gone on a very public campaign to try to, part of the campaign is flatly saying drop the suit. And a lot of what they're arguing is that this program helps primarily low-income minority children escape troubled public schools and go to private schools, and that this is their opportunity. That's what the argument is. And it is, as you indicated, there's TV spots running that are very focused on helping minority children by preserving this program. And there's also other efforts out there right now to try to win the public relations war is what's really going on.
Well, who are the major opponents of school choice and tax credit scholarships?
Well, Democrats, many Democrats, not all, because there are some black Democrats particularly who have been supportive of this program in the past. But Democrats sort of, in general, have opposed this type of program. The biggest opponent, and a lot of the money behind the lawsuits, I think, or at least a lot of the push behind the lawsuits coming from the Florida Education Association Teachers Union. I mean, vouchers to the teachers union are the ultimate enemy that they fight, not only in Florida, but in other states as well. They are the, it is a hot button issue for the teachers union. So there are other groups and parties involved in these lawsuits, but the FEA is sort of the common thread behind them.
I think the argument that you hear most often from the opponents is that it takes money, public money, out of the public school system and transfers it really to the private school system.
Well, back when former Governor Jeb Bush is probably the main, biggest proponent, most highly visible proponent of school choice in Florida. He had a more pure vouchers program, which would have just directly sent tax dollars to private schools for these kids to go. The FEA and some other parties sued to overturn that, and the argument was spot on what you said. They're taking money away from the public schools and giving it to private schools, and that was found unconstitutional in Florida. That is also the argument they're making in this the challenge, overall challenge to the tax credit scholarship program. But it's a little trickier because there really is not money going into the state coffers. It's tax credits being given to corporations for putting money into this system. So it's not as clean of an argument, and it's going to be interesting to see from a legal perspective whether the FEA and their lawyers can draw that straight line between these tax credits and money being removed from public schools. The proponents of the program say you can't draw that line because the money never goes into the state till, if you will. So you don't know whether the money would be going to public schools or if it'd be going to healthcare, if it'd be going to criminal justice. It's hard to draw the line.
Bad news for opponents, though, may be found in the results of the 2014 election and some changes in the makeup of the House of Representatives. You got a net of 6 seats for Republicans, and the numbers remain the same in the Senate, but there may be more support for school choice and tax credit scholarships in this legislature than in the last.
Well, Governor Scott and the House have been very supportive of school choice efforts, over the years. They both got reelected, and the House even has a bigger majority. So you got 2 of the 3 legs of the stool, if you will, right there. The question has always been in the Senate. The Senate's more moderate, and it's also been a bit more receptive to the arguments of the opponents of choice voucher programs. But one of the biggest supporters of Charlie Crist, the Democratic candidate this year, was the FEA, the Florida Education Association Teachers Union. And they spent a lot of money and they spent a lot of effort trying to unseat Rick Scott. And I'm not sure the changes in numbers matter as much as the Republicans are going to have some short memories about what the teachers union did in this election, and they may be more willing to go against the teachers union as a result of that.
Thank you, Jim. For more news about Florida politics and government, visit the Advances section of our website.